Dear viewers, you are watching Ruslan Beylov's channel, and this is our traditional daily breakdown of events on the Ukrainian and Iranian fronts. A prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine is scheduled for today. 300 soldiers on each side, as announced by official representatives of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I would like to open today's episode with troubling news from Kupansk. The central district hospital, which soldiers of the Russian armed forces had been using as a defensive strongpoint for the past several months, has been completely destroyed. The building was literally leveled to the ground as a result of a massive strike using rockets fired from American HIMARS multiple launch rocket systems. This fortified position had been preventing Ukrainian forces from entering Kupiansk, despite the fact that Russian soldiers held it for a prolonged period, while completely encircled and without any supply lines. We will return to the events in Kupiansk at the end of today's episode, but for now let us begin our situational analysis with the Zaparisia direction, where significant changes have been recorded. In addition, changes are noted on the Pokrovsk, Dobrovolsk, Sloviansk and Kreminna directions. From the remaining sectors of the contact line, predominantly operational reports are coming in without confirmed territorial changes. Before proceeding directly to the review, I would like, as is our long-standing tradition, to sincerely ask you, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so right now. At this point, the only real way to support the channel's development is to press the subscribe button. I understand that many have shifted their attention to the events of the Iranian conflict, but I continue to conduct systematic monitoring of the line of contact on the Ukrainian front. So let us begin with the Zaparisia direction. Let us take a closer look at the settlement of Vasilyanka. The Russian Ministry of Defense has officially announced that Vasilyanka has come under full Russian control, and simultaneously the settlement of Richna has also come under Russian control. In the comments, many viewers are expressing concern that Russian troops have pushed too far forward and risk being encircled. Ukrainian forces may attempt to cut off the resulting salient. However, it appears that Russian soldiers did not advance toward Vasilyanka from the direction of Primorsk and Richny, but rather moved along an existing supply road following a specific route. And all of this territory at the present moment is most likely under Russian military control. No direct confirmation of this has yet been received, but this appears to be the most probable picture. As soon as confirming data appears, I will report it immediately. As for concerns about a possible encirclement of Russian soldiers, a natural factor must be taken into account. The Konka River flows through this area, all bridges and crossings have already been destroyed, and therefore Ukrainian forces are unlikely to undertake offensive operations in this sector. We continue to monitor the development of the situation. Moving on to the Julipole direction, over the past 24 hours, video footage has arrived from a specific point in this area. Active combat engagements have been recorded in the vicinity of Julipole. Russian armed forces assault groups are advancing westward from the settlement of Pryluki and taking up new positions under fire from Ukrainian formations. According to available data, the Russian zone of control has expanded by approximately 2 kilometers in the direction of the settlement of Vyzdvizhivka. Over the past week, reports have been coming in that Russian forces are striking Ukrainian positions in Vyzdvizhivka and Verkhnya Tersa. However, no actual entry into these settlements has been recorded. Earlier, we suggested that Russian forces would straighten the front line along the railway. The railway runs through this area in a specific direction, and to the south of Zaliznichny, the front line has already been straightened. Now it appears an analogous process is underway to the west of Pryluki, Varvarivka, and Yeleno-Konstantinivka. Once the front line is straightened along the railway, active assault operations against Vyzdvizhivka and Verkhnya Tersa will likely begin. At the time of recording this episode, the territory marked in red has come under Russian control, and no other changes in this sector have been recorded today. Nevertheless, reports of activity in this sector continue to arrive, although no advances are currently being recorded. Regarding what is known without objective control footage, according to available data, Ukrainian formations have finally been driven out of Hryshine. Sources report that a final clearing operation is currently being conducted there, and an official announcement of the settlement's transition to Russian control should follow shortly. Notably, Ukrainian analytical resources are also reporting this. In particular, the leading Ukrainian monitoring resource Deep State has designated Hryshine as completely lost. Moving further along the map to the Sloviansk direction. Here, over the past 24 hours, changes have also been recorded and video materials obtained. Let us begin with the changes. They concern the settlement of Privilia. Earlier, reports had been coming in that Russian forces were expanding their zone of control in this area, but the precise location of the advance remained unknown. A number of sources indicated that the expansion of the zone of control was occurring between Fedorivka and Privilia, where the front line is being straightened and the corresponding territory is coming under Russian control. Yesterday, the relevant sector was colored on the map, and today the territory that has come under the control of the Russian armed forces over the past 24 hours is marked in red on the map. I remind you that the actual zone of control at the time of recording may be significantly larger, but without a sufficient volume of confirming information, changes are not entered on the map. In addition, data is arriving about the expansion of Russian forces' zone of control in the area of Nikiforivka and their advance in wooded areas near Lipivka. This settlement had previously already come under Russian control. The fact of its transition was confirmed, including by video footage recording the advance of Russian forces by 2 kilometers toward this point. Reports are now coming in of a further expansion of the zone of control in the wooded areas. This apparently refers to the forest sections on the approaches to the settlement of Rye Oleksandrivka, one of the key objectives toward which Russian soldiers are moving. Video footage has also been received from the area north of the settlement of Vasyukivka. Positional fighting has been recorded in the area of Siversk at this location. The forward position of the Russian armed forces north of Vasyukivka came under fire from Ukrainian forces. Russian soldiers advanced along the highway toward Poznan and expanded the zone of control by approximately 1.5 kilometers. The forward position on this line came under Ukrainian fire. I would remind you that confirming materials from Poznan had been received earlier, and the Russian Ministry of Defense officially announced the complete transition of Poznan under Russian control. The entire adjacent territory is now under the control of Russian military personnel. It remains somewhat unclear why Russian forces are recorded as having advanced only 1.5 kilometers, given that they had already advanced at least 3 kilometers here earlier. I am reporting the available data as it comes in. Another video was received from a different point in this area. Russian armed forces drone operators successfully attacked and set fire to an abandoned Ukrainian armored personnel carrier on the highway near Kryva Luka. The distance to the zone of active combat was approximately 2.5 kilometers. From this, we can conclude that the forward positions of Ukrainian forces are located precisely there, and all the territory between the positions of the two sides constitutes a grey zone. The settlements of Kryva Luka and Kaleniki remain under Ukrainian control. I would also note that the majority of known Ukrainian fortification lines are marked on the map in yellow. These are fortified areas and trench positions. Furthermore, an official statement has been received from the Russian Ministry of Defense regarding the transition of the settlement of Yarova under full Russian control. Notably, the map coloring for this area had already been carried out previously. All of this territory was confidently controlled by Russian military personnel. Video footage from this sector had been obtained, and the adjacent grey zone had previously also come under Russian control. However, control had remained somewhat uncertain. Confirming information is now arriving about the complete taking of Yarova under Russian control and the clearing operation being conducted there. A similar situation appears to be developing in Drobyshevo. Earlier reports stated that this settlement had been fully taken under Russian control and that a clearing operation of its central section was underway. No additional data from this sector has yet arrived, but it appears this sector is also under Russian military control. If Yarova and Drobyshevo have indeed come under full control, there is a real possibility of Russian forces advancing into the adjacent wooded areas and creating conditions for the encirclement of Lyman itself. The supply of Lyman is already extremely difficult due to the river flowing through this area. All bridges were previously destroyed, and any improvised crossings are promptly destroyed by loitering munition strikes and artillery. In this regard, the position of Ukrainian forces in Lyman can be characterized as critical, and there is a non-zero probability that by the end of spring, Lyman may come under full Russian control. Now let us return to the events in Kupiansk, which I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. The city hospital building, which served as one of the key strongpoints of Russian defense in Kupiansk, was completely destroyed as a result of a massive barrage of rockets fired from HIMARS systems. A number of telegram channels had already rushed to report the destruction of the Russian soldiers stationed there. However, this turned out to be incorrect information. Attempts to make contact with the soldiers continued throughout the entire day and finally succeeded. The servicemen reported that they have been holding the defense at this position for 4 months. They confirmed the complete destruction of the Central District Hospital building, but noted that the defensive positions have not been broken. After the building was destroyed, Ukrainian forces attempted to take advantage of the situation and launched an assault on the surrounding blocks. However, the assault was repelled and the attackers suffered significant casualties. This is being reported by Russian sources. For context, I would remind you it was precisely along this line that the Russian defensive perimeter ran, which Ukrainian forces had been unable to break through for an extended period. Russian soldiers held their positions for 3 months under conditions of complete encirclement in the hospital building itself, and now this building has been completely destroyed. Available video recordings and photographic materials document total destruction. Virtually nothing remains of the building. Nevertheless, the Russian defense on this line is holding, and Ukrainian forces have so far been unable to break through it. The map for this sector today shows no changes, just as yesterday and the day before. In all likelihood, no changes should be expected here in the near future. As soon as new information arrives, I will report it immediately, and if territorial changes occur, I will enter them on the map. Now let us turn to events in the Middle East, where the war is not only failing to subside, but is on the contrary, continuing to escalate. Today marks exactly 1 week since the beginning of active military confrontation between Iran and the United States and Israel. Many analysts initially predicted that this conflict would last only a few days and would end very quickly. However, the Trump administration is now acknowledging that the war will most likely last at least 100 days, and a number of sources do not rule out its dragging on, at least until September. What has happened over the past 24 hours? Just a few hours ago, Iran struck the Israeli embassy in Manama, the capital of Bahrain, using drones. The drones proved to be an effective means of attack. American air defense systems are demonstrating their inability to reliably intercept such targets, and the drone reached its intended objective. Just before the recording of this episode began, footage arrived confirming that Iran struck an American base in Baghdad, in the area of the international airport. The attacking drone was again not intercepted, it hit the target, and a fire broke out on the base's territory. During the night, Iran struck an airbase on the territory of Kuwait. High-quality satellite imagery documenting the aftermath was provided exclusively by the Chinese side. Other parties to the conflict simply do not possess satellite imagery of this quality. The Kuwaiti side reported 67 military personnel injured as a result of this strike. In terms of casualties inflicted on personnel, this strike became one of the most effective Iranian strikes throughout the entire conflict. During the same night, strikes were also carried out against Tel Aviv. A missile struck in the immediate vicinity of Ben Gurion Airport. Corresponding footage has already appeared in open sources. Returning to the situation in Bahrain, this small island monarchy has been absorbing the most significant strikes within the current conflict, having found itself the least protected of all the participants. And yet it is precisely in Bahrain that the headquarters of the United States Navy's Fifth Fleet is located. While the air defense system is not coping with its tasks, this may be related to the fact that Iran had previously destroyed an American radar located at this base. Available footage clearly shows Iranian missiles passing through air defense lines without being intercepted. Summing up the previous day, Iran struck the United States Navy base, not for the first time, apparently with the aim of inflicting maximum damage. In addition, strikes were recorded against Bahrain's largest oil refinery. Also yesterday, an Iranian unmanned surface vessel struck a tanker sailing under the American flag. The vessel did not sink, but sustained significant hull damage. Additionally, satellite imagery has arrived, indicating the destruction of yet another American radar worth approximately $500 million, this time at an American base in Jordan. At the same time, in order to avoid a one-sided picture of the situation, it is necessary to note the following. Iran itself is also being subjected to large-scale and devastating strikes. Footage arriving from the Iranian city of Bushehr conveys a picture of genuine devastation. American armed forces are operating without any restraint and are methodically destroying urban infrastructure. A similar situation is unfolding in Tehran and other Iranian cities. Iran's position is extremely difficult. How this confrontation will end is hard to predict. However, Iran has held out for 1 week already and will likely hold out for at least as long again. It is possible that the confrontation will drag on for a month or more. If Trump ultimately decides to launch a ground operation, which at the moment seems hard to believe, the conflict could stretch on for many months. The terrain in Iran is extremely unfavorable for conducting military operations, and waging war against a country with a population of 96 million people will be an exceptionally challenging undertaking. That is all for today. I thank everyone who watched this episode to the end. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Until we meet again in future episodes.